Hi, everybody. Welcome to 6 Feet Unfiltered. I'm Chloe.
I'm Courtney.
And we are going to talk about Season 1, Episode 3, The Foot.
Yep.
Today.
But before we dive in, if you've been following us, I don't know if you noticed this, but we say like.
6 of you.
All 6 of you. We say like a lot. And so I figured we're going to turn it into a game. And every time one of us says like.
I have not heard this yet.
No, I remembered it today. Just 30 seconds ago.
Barely.
Anytime one of us says, yeah, I still might even be making it up. I'm not even sure. You have to call each other out and you have to yell Winston.
Okay.
And then the other person has to drink, the one that says like.
Okay.
It's supposed to help us cut back on the editing.
Yes. Okay. So what were your overall impressions of this episode? Just like general.
Oh, it was morbid.
Mm-hmm.
My jaw dropped. Remember, I've seen this before, but it had been like 10 years and my jaw dropped a few times. Like I forgot about it, about what happened. And it was very funny. I found myself laughing out loud.
I thought the same thing too. I literally wrote that down. This is my word for word note. This was actually a super funny episode to me, but it was very subliminal humor, or it was things that like could be easily missed if you weren't paying attention, which is another point to why like a lot of people say they couldn't get into this show because it's slow or something. So if it's something that you're not really paying attention to, you're gonna miss out on all the good stuff.
Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, seriously. I mean, it probably even took us the second time around to pick up on some of the things.
Yes. For me, and like overall this one, there's definitely way more intense episodes as you get into the show.
Deeper.
Yeah, just like there's 2 that stand out to me that I cannot wait until we get to, because I have like 2 favorite episodes, but they're not until at least like season 4.
Winston.
Oh, fuck.
I think it was 2 too, but that's fine.
I'm not gonna.
How many seasons is there? 8?
I don't remember.
Okay.
But yeah, not like anything super
Winston.
crazy. Shit. You're right. We need to not do that much. Okay.
Okay, so our opening death scene. We start out season 1, episode 3 of 6 Feet Under at Hossman's All Natural Bread Company with a man named Thomas Romano. Romano.
Yeah, Romano.
Who is just trying to get through his shift. We've all been there, brother.
At Hardee's.
At Hardee's. Good old hard-ons. He's cleaning the inside of the giant industrial-sized dough mixer, scrubbing away, when his teenage assistant decides to drop the world's most inappropriate question. Has anyone ever had sex in the mixer? Before Thomas can respond with a well-deserved, what the hell is wrong with you? A cockroach lands on the kid's hand. The kid freaks out and falls off his ladder, accidentally flips the machine on. The mixer roars to life, and poor man Thomas is well. Let's just say he becomes a very unfortunate ingredient.
Yes. So giant mixer. Like we're talking like, I don't know.
I feel like we used to work with a Romano.
Probably.
And that teenage kid.
A lot of
and the cockroach.
Yes. Oh my god. Oh my gosh. Do you remember when
in the basement?
The ceiling caved in?
Yes. And there was droppings from the ceiling over the cheeses.
Of snow. The snow was melting through the roof onto all the food at Hardee's. Anyway, this mixer was like, you could fit like 30 people inside of it.
Yeah.
Like, it was like
a good hot tub.
Thing. Yes. So he gets...
And if you mix them all up, you could probably fit more than 30 people.
Good point. So that's our dead guy, Romano.
Rest in peace.
Thomas Romano, R.I.P. Then we cut to our main characters, and the opening scene is with Brenda and Nate post-sex right after.
Naked. They're still naked.
Mm-hmm. They're on the floor, and you see them over the bed. I don't know. And I thought it was funny how they were just like, this was specifically for me, wasn't it?
Oh, I didn't even call it out. I noticed myself doing it too, but when I was going through yours, it was every...
That's always been a crutch of mine. Like,
I think mine too,
for sure.
Or or I also say, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a lot. I also say 100%. 100%. I hate it.
Yeah, I do that too.
I hate it.
100% all the time.
We'll have to, well, if anyone out there also has these tics, you're not alone.
And feel free to call us out on our tics. They don't
yeah.
make us upset.
Yeah. They were telling each other or giving each other shit for the funny noises that each other was making during their interaction, which I thought was cute.
And also kind of an older relationship thing.
Yeah, they're coming to advancing. A point that you don't usually get to with someone in that short amount of time.
Right.
So it speaks to their
comfortability
and comfortability. But in my notes later, we see a lot of how they're in terms of like
the volatile
jabbing at each other. There's toxicity too.
Oh yes. Remember, because in our last episode we were talking about, or maybe it was the first one, the loving hard and hating hard. Those kind of come into play
for sure. Yeah. And one notable moment from this part, Brenda has this record playing in the background, and Nate says, "Oh, I like this song. It reminds me of being a kid, still being blissfully ignorant about what a sick joke life can be." So that was just another moment. I wrote eye roll, LOL, because Nate is just being his typical whiny self, but their banter is funny. And they're learning how to push each other's buttons like we just talked about, and it's working. So we start to see the toxicity that develops between them as well as their connection. And we also learn here that Nate wants to sell the business, which is actually kind of opposite of how we left off
the last episode.
So that at first when I watched this episode, I'm like, me and Courtney like had it wrong. But the more I thought about it, the more I was thinking that we actually probably were interpreting things correctly. It's just that Nate is such a wishy-washy,
He's flaky
forth character. And we see that continue to develop throughout this episode too.
And then I was talking about how it was ironic that when Brenda was... Why were they talking about... Why did she say that?
She made a joke, just like a sick joke about her. Oh, that was just the heroine talking. He said something
he said something about what she used to do.
And she made a joke that...
Oh, you liked Sting too? Or you liked U2 too?
Yes,
or something
they were
like
talking
that?
about music.
And she's like, oh, that was just the heroine talking. And Nate gave this look of shock or disgust or confusion. And Brenda goes, oh my God, I love that look. And then in that same scene... Literally in the same room, Nate says he hopes they sell to Kroner so he can get the hell out of Seattle, which was probably shocking to Brenda because she's like, I thought we had something good going on. And Nate goes, well, you can come with too. And she's like, why would I come with you to Seattle? And he goes, because you're my woman. And I'm like, that's disgusting.
He did say it in a tone that was like
joking,
obviously being...
Yeah, there's a word for that.
Facetious.
Yeah.
Maybe. I always use that word or it will pop into my brain, but I never
don't know if it's like correctly used.
Yeah. But maybe.
If
not, then ignore that part, I guess.
Yeah. Anyway, so then that was funny. And still in that same scene, she goes, why would I ever do a thing like that? Like, I would never do that. And Nate said, then why the hell do you have my name branded on your ass? And she gives him the same shock looked or disgust. I bet it's a disgust look.
It's like, fuck you, basically.
Yeah. And Nate goes, oh man, I love that look. And you can, just like you were saying, they're back. Oh, I said like. They're back to that.
Maybe we tally our likes at the end and then drink next time.
Oh God, we'll be drunk in 4 minutes.
But we keep stopping to say we said like.
Oh, okay.
But we should still try to not.
Okay.
I don't know.
And nobody's saying Winston anymore.
I forgot that part.
Okay. Okay, then this was hilarious. Claire dance sequence.
So another kind of what the fuck moment that we talked about. It was similar to the embalming product commercials they had in episode 1. It was like a complete shift to
like if you're stoned and you're watching that, you probably don't know what's going on anymore.
Yes. And it's weird. And it's like intended to make you uncomfortable. But
didn't Ruth show up in it too?
Yeah, and David, because they were both in the room with her. they asked, well, she came down and she's like, good morning, and being chipper, and that is not her. So Ruth is like, what is wrong with you? and that's when it comes.
Are you on drugs?
Yeah.
What did she say? Are you bulimic?
Yes, something like that. Just Ruth is so confused about essentially what this scene, this weird dancing sequence. I mean, I think I wrote down, oh, what a little moonlight can do. Like,
yes.
So it's showing that she's in love. Basically, she's smitten with Gabe. It's right after the
foot incident,
the toe sucking hookup situation. So we start the episode off from Claire's perspective, just being enamored with falling for Gabe.
Mm-hmm.
Feel for her.
And in that same situation, Nate walks in, and I don't even remember what Ruth said. She said something about, oh, nice of you to join us, or whatever. And then he was like, sorry, I'm late. I was at Brenda's last night, and Dave just... nobody cares where you were at. Why do you always have to tell us what you're doing? And Nate said, sorry, I forgot we're all living our lives in shrouded secrecy. That to me it reminded me of the low times of my sister and I's relationship. But that was also when we were 15 and 13, not 35.
But I wonder what the dynamics would be like if life circumstances put you both back together in the same household living together right now. You know?
With all 4 of my kids.
I mean, that would definitely add to the dynamic.
that might not be very fun.
But that's how they normally
they just have some shit they need to get.
But they would.
Figured out.
It's not typical for a family of like a 35-year-old, however old David is. I don't know.
He's younger.
18-year-old, and then their mom to all be living. It's like kind of circumstantial that they're all together. And
everybody's already on edge.
Mm-hmm. So that reminded me.
But still, I just thought, yes,
that was super.
Nobody
funny.
cares. Like, who says that?
They're just extremely irritated with each other.
Yes.
And then around the breakfast table, they're talking about selling the business because Nate says,
I loved this part.
I think we should sell. Like, this is just out of nowhere. I think we should sell. David really gets pretty vulnerable here. I think it's out of the intensity of the moment.
He was already in a mood.
Yeah.
Clearly.
He clearly was in a mood. You're right. And David responds by saying to him, Nate, this is all I know. And Ruth actually agrees with Nate, says, I think Nate's right. We should do what makes us happy. And then David says,
essentially, sure, let's just invalidate my entire life. Mm-hmm. And without taking a beat, Nate was like, okay, I'll call Kroner and tell him we made the decision. Just like rude as fuck.
It was obvious that David was being
he needed a hug.
Yes, and he needed someone to level with him.
He had big boy feelings.
And acknowledge that he was feeling dismissed. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Nate did not at all. He was just being his selfish self and was like, okay, great. I'll go to Kroner and tell him that we've made a decision.
And it wasn't him. He wasn't even being like stupid and not seeing that part.
Right.
He knew.
I think it was willful ignorance, but also he's just mostly concerned with him. He doesn't, he's reverting back to his original, before we saw any development from him, his original state. He's acting out of fear.
And it only took a few weeks of living back in the house. Interesting.
Yeah. And again, Nate goes up and down all the time. So there's more to come with that. We also learn in the scene that David gave up his dreams of going to law school to run the funeral home business, which was something I never picked up on the first time around. It's mentioned, but it's, again, one of those things you just have to pay attention to pick up on all the details. But that was a major dream, apparently, that David had was to go to law school.
And he's clearly intelligent enough.
Yes, very much, and driven and all of the things. But Nate suggests that in that conversation, suggests that to him, well, why not? You could do a lot of things instead of this. You could do what you want to do. You could
go back to school.
Go to law school like you always dreamed of, which was a very quiet little drop in. So if you're not paying attention, you would have missed that, which makes sense why we didn't pick that up the first time. But I think that's a really important thing. But at the same time,
who wants to start their law school career? Mm-hmm. Let's assume that he's in the 30s. They have to be like less.
I would guess
2 years apart of it.
Yeah, or 32 32 or if Nate, we know Nate's 35. So when we see them when they're little boys, they're only like, I would guess
They're very
2
close.
years apart,
Yep.
maybe.
I would say 32, 33.
Yeah.
Who wants to start that 8-year trek at 33?
Yeah.
Not saying it can't be done, because I have actually personally seen girlfriends of mine do that, but
We have both actually had career changes in our life.
yes, many times.
Yeah.
Well, for me at least.
Yeah. Well, yeah, just once for me, but still.
But yours was a big ass shift too, because yours was, mine were small, you know, a couple years here, a couple years. You were invested, and your career change was.
Yeah.
Would you want to go back to law school right now?
No.
That's a great. You're probably around the same age.
That's so interesting because I have been, I mean, I will say, like, I cannot not say like. I can't. It just comes out. I need to not think about that.
I forgot you were doing it.
Okay. I'll try my best, but holy shit. It's like every time I say it now, I like my brain just goes.
Okay, then forget about it, because it's just going to screw you up.
But
Just be you.
okay. So that's why I said Talia, and because I will still pay my penance, and I agree I need to stop, but I need to not stop.
You better
talking
bring a
every
box
time.
of wine then.
Yes. Okay. But I did go through, and am still actually kind of going through, an identity crisis, if you will, because I know I mentioned in our first episode very quickly, but I taught first grade for 8 years, and then I quit, and now I have a different job and I work from home. But I also went and got my master's degree during that time, and I was full on for sure at least 6.5 out of those 8 years, 100% thinking that I would retire
As a teacher.
That was I was working toward that. And sometimes life just throws you curveballs. And
Do you remember one time we were talking about you maybe doing design?
when were we talking about that?
Like fashion.
I don't remember this, but I'm not saying we didn't. Where?
I can't remember. It was obviously while you were still teaching, but I think you were drawing something. And I was like, oh my God, these are really good.
Thank you. I don't know when I would have ever been drawing something with you, but
You weren't drawing it with me. I just saw it in one of your notebooks.
oh, you want to know what's funny? What my position will probably end up eventually being if I stay on this track that I'm on right now is an instructional designer.
That would be really cool. I mean,
But
is
just
it
funny,
cool?
the connections. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's just basically circling back. I can relate to David. He's at a crossroads, essentially. And I've been at a crossroads. You've been at crossroads. We've all probably had certain crossroads, some more dramatic than others.
Yep.
But ultimately, when you're at a crossroads like that, it's never usually an easy thing to
Especially
make the
when
decision.
somebody seems to. I think part of David's problem too is autonomy seems to be the theme of a lot of this, and he is losing that by Nate doing whatever he wants.
Yeah.
And it probably hurt David more to hear Nate say you could go back to law school versus to hear Keith tell David that.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Because Nate's coming at it from a selfish perspective. And he knows that.
So that taints it, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So then motherfucker shows up, the morgue guy.
Nate goes to the morgue to pick up the sliced up guy from the dome. Yeah. But the guy at the morgue is they're carrying out the body bag of the pieces of the body of Mr. Romano, who was our death scene person. And the morgue guy says to Nate,
we think it's all there.
Yeah, they're talking about the body like, oh, that might be his head, that might be his pelvis, like, or they're struggling with the body. And then he doesn't know that or he asked where Rico is. He was like, where's Rico at?
Oh, did he finally get canned?
Yeah, or something. Like, did he get canned or something? And Nate was like, no, he's just busy. I'm just a temp. And the guy was like, oh, I hear old man Fisher kicked it. Did you know him? And Nate said, not really.
I didn't pick up on that.
I know that was they really just slide in these big character perspective pieces.
Why do you think he said that?
Because I think he didn't really know him, and he's realizing he didn't really know him.
Yes, I did pick up on that, but I didn't pick up. As you said it to me, and as I watched it, I experienced two different
I think the other side too is I thought as well he didn't want to get into the conversation with him and say, oh yeah, he was my dad, because he's not really in the mood for that.
He just didn't want to talk.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right, he probably really didn't know his dad.
There was a deeper level to him saying, I mean, he wasn't lying when he said not really, because he's been learning so much recently about how much he didn't know about his dad. And then the guy says, no offense, but you might want to call your agency and ask for a new assignment. And Nate says, already on it, which is him in his mind trying to convince his family to agree to sell their business. Mm-hmm. So at this point, Nate is like gung-ho on selling to Kroner. And then this is so sad, but Claire walks out of high school to her hearse, graffitied in words like oink oink little piggy and toe slut. So obviously letting us know that Gabe has
spilled the beans
about their encounter. So that was very sad for Claire. And that this episode also really jumps back and forth between scenes and around a lot.
Yeah.
So I did timestamp everything, so it should all be in chronological order, but it is pretty choppy, I will say.
Back to the car graffiti.
Yeah.
How many times have we graffitied cars?
We never wrote toe slut.
No, we probably wrote worse. Or we had worse. I had somebody pee on my car one time. Do you remember that?
I remember another story. I'm the reason I left and turned away is because I don't want to say the person's name, so I won't. But
we'll call
there was a story about
Janessa. We'll call him Janessa.
Okay. I don't remember who did what in the story, and I don't think it was a real story. But somebody, it was you and Janessa, fake name. One of you pooped in the other one's cars.
Janessa pooped in mine.
Was that real? Seat.
I don't know if it was a poop. I think it for sure was pee.
Why?
It was at a party. I don't know. I
had pit party.
I had left my car there and I had to go. I was the DD. So I drove somebody in their car and drove it back and came back and they're like, Janessa and her gals peed and they like threw rocks in Tremaine and peed on him.
I think they just dumped a bunch of like mud and stuff and maybe also some
Janessa
human things in your car.
But Janessa and I are friends now.
Yeah.
So it's funny how the world comes around.
It's character development with that person, I will say. Uh-huh. Like they won't know if we're talking about that.
They know. They know. How many people pee in cars?
It's fine. You said back to
the car graffiti. I was just thinking about how we used to do chalk, like the car chalk.
I remember one time.
And we would X them and stamp them. And
I don't remember if it was with you or who I was with, but I was with somebody and we it was with because sometimes it was like with those you would get them at Walmart. It's like glass car paint.
And it's like a sponge.
Yeah, so it washes off. Car chalk, yeah. I wonder if they still make that. But I remember one time, I know for sure I was with
Janessa.
No. I know one person I know for sure I was
Tanya.
With. Maybe.
We'll call them Tanya. I'll figure them out from the story.
Okay. But the car was parked somewhere and we completely colored in the entire front windshield.
And you did that with a friend of ours.
Yes.
Who sounds like Melina.
You're just making up words. But that was the meanest thing ever, and I don't remember.
We were so mean, and people were so mean to us.
There was always a reason, though, I will say. There was always a reason, and yeah.
We grew up in a small town, Hibbing, Minnesota.
If you didn't get to experience those things, then I'm sorry, because it was kind of fun.
Yeah, it builds character.
Yeah.
Puts hair on your chest. That's what my uncle would say.
Okay, so we meet Ruth's friend Amelia. She shows up at Ruth's house, and Ruth.
I didn't really like Amelia at first.
Same. She grew on me. I think she.
Yeah, within minutes.
I think she proceeds. If she's the person I'm thinking of, she will descend in my. I continue to dislike her. I can't remember if it's the same friend, but I think it is. And if it is, it's in the next couple of episodes, so we'll find out. But in this episode, Amelia, overall, I would give her a thumbs up.
Okay.
But in this moment and beginning, and I think overall just personality, I agree. There are some like icks.
Yep.
But she basically.
Then some thumbs ups too.
For sure. Yes. I have a few notes of her later. But this is kind of the choppiness. She shows up and then it cuts to another scene. So we just find out that Ruth's friend comes to see her. And then we get to when Kroner.
They're at the meeting table.
Yes. Nate.
Literally about to sign papers, I think.
They did. Actually, I feel like they for sure at least.
Well, there was a check
started
involved.
The process.
Yeah.
They did some paperwork. I don't know. But Nate was following up on his word and went to go meet with Kroner and sell to them, start the process, get the ball rolling on selling the business. And Kroner says to Nate, like, no offense, but yeah, your dad didn't really know how to run a business. And Nate says, I don't think he was offended right away, but just naturally kind of says, yeah, I think he was more so just kind of concerned with helping people. And Kroner says back to him, well, if you want to help people, join the Peace Corps, am I right? And they're having kind of like a bro-y moment, similar to what Nate and Rico have had that we've described. But Nate is having this bro-y moment with the Kroner guy, but you can start to tell that he starts to feel slimy about it. He starts to get uncomfortable as this interaction is going on, and Nathaniel Sr.'s Spectre appears in the room with him in this moment too, which
is one of my faves.
I think a good way to look at when he shows up, it's providing perspective to the thoughts of the character that it's happening with.
Yes.
That's really what it is. But Nate's conscience is gaining on him, and he's realizing,
which is crazy. If Kroner would have just shut the fuck up,
yeah,
none of this probably would have happened.
It wouldn't have sparked the bipolar, volatile.
But that's what a lot of salespeople do too. They just don't know when to shut up.
Like they said in the last episode, the one guy said to David and Nate, "You've closed. Don't overclose.
Yes!
It kills word of mouth."
Yes, that was episode 2.
Wow, we just made a connection. That was foreshadowing. Mrs. Beesman would be so proud of us.
Mrs. Beesman!
She was so cute. Okay.
Whoa.
That is actually really, wow. Okay. So Nate's conscience was gaining on him, and he's realizing that all Kroner cares about is maximizing profits and not people.
Which he explicitly says.
Basically, yes. And Nate has this quote of saying, so in the end, we're all just human McNuggets. And Kroner goes,
I knew I liked you.
Just like we started. I knew I liked you or something.
Just like we started. Yeah, I forgot he said that too.
Which is to think, what do you mean that's how we started?
I don't remember looking like a McNugget.
I don't even understand. It's like, okay.
There's no correlation.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway.
And then Nathaniel Sr., the Spectre of Nate's conscious, is in the corner and he goes, you hear that, buddy boy? He likes you. You're cool now. Wow, you are so cool. Or some shit like that.
Which is showing how Nate is starting to realize that he's being a douche.
Yes. Wow, you are so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is true. It's like, oh, okay. Do you really want to feel good about yourself in a moment where you are basically contributing to
the chicken McNuggets?
Yeah. Like icky. I don't know. Nate doesn't like the idea of viewing death or mourning from such a callous perspective.
And let's be real, his dad literally just died.
Yeah. It's very, very honestly bad sales technique from Kroner's perspective, but we know that they are going to do what they want anyway, no matter what. So then we cut to another scene again, and Gabe approaches Claire in the hallway at high school, kind of flirty, doesn't know she's pissed at him yet, and Claire confronts him and told him about the graffiti on her car. And Gabe admits to telling his friend about the toe-sucking incidents or interaction, and Claire basically just tells him to F off. But you had some thoughts on this.
I did. I thought it was interesting that he did not, I don't think he intended for her to get like made fun of, you know? Like I think he confided into one of his friends, which was stupid because teenagers, we don't really know how to keep stuff like that a secret. That's kind of a big secret. So you could tell that he was like, fuck, what did I do? But also in the same breath is like, that shouldn't have been shared with somebody else.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he is sad that he is having consequences to his actions. I would be willing to bet that his conversation with his friend, which is kind of proven later because there's a moment later on where somebody else confronts Gabe, and Gabe kind of throws Claire under the bus or says that she's a loser. But I think that Gabe was probably bragging. Probably
It came off as a brag, I bet.
And probably didn't say anything about indicating that he wanted to protect Claire's privacy or anything like that. I think he's just sad. He's realizing he's having consequences to his actions and he's not happy about it, but he didn't have the foresight to be able to predict this because he's a teenage boy and he's an idiot.
I thought it was just interesting that he wasn't embarrassed about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a good other separate, like, it's interesting how it's embarrassing for her, but not for him. And how Claire is the one getting made fun of when...
It's not like she took off his socks and said, "Can I suck your toe?"
Yeah, but maybe, I mean, we don't know what he said. Maybe it was...
It just was an invasion of privacy, point blank. But it is interesting that she was embarrassed about it.
Surface level, it's kind of like silly high school drama, but if you really look into the deep, if you dig into the core of the dynamics,
it's a breach of trust.
It's very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's very exploitative, I think, or it's very just like violating. That's literally the word I was looking for. It's just very violating and traumatizing for her. And I think there's probably, if you and I thought back, there's probably a lot of situations you and I can think of from high school that one of our friends have dealt with that could be analogous to this.
And you know what? She's 17. And I was just thinking, I'm 31. So, like, been there, gone through the things we both have. I don't think there's a lot that would actually embarrass me. Like, I can't even think off the top of my head.
It's all just based on the power dynamics or like the misogyny.
And she lost the power because somebody else
because she's
breached.
A woman.
Yeah, because she is a woman and a teenage woman at that. But you were right. Oh, wow. We could unpack that one. I'm surprised it had to be a toe sucking. It could have just, where we grew up, it could have just been getting fingered. Like, oh my God, Courtney got fingered. She's not a virgin anymore.
No matter what it is, it's just automatically, regardless of the act, it's an X, Y, or Z. The woman is
the one
looked down upon, and the man is not to blame.
Fuck that shit.
Yeah. Agreed.
I just read a meme the other day, and it made me like, LOL. It said, dudes be like talking shit about how many dicks this girl has, but not how many times he fucked the same girl. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a double standard.
It's
fucked up. That's the world we live in.
That's ridiculous.
So, again, moving to a different scene, Ruth and Amelia are in Ruth and Nathaniel's bedroom, and Amelia was supporting her through going through Nathaniel's belongings, essentially, but Ruth was getting...
More so, like, taking charge of it.
She was getting a little manic and weird, and...
They both were. It sounded like Amelia wanted her to do it her way. Ruth wanted to do it her way, and they weren't on the same page.
They weren't on the same wavelength. I think, though, we do see that... I do believe that Amelia wanted to help Ruth. I just think they did not have a very good understanding, Amelia at least did not have a very good understanding of what Ruth needed, because everybody's different. She was just doing what she thought that she would need in that situation, maybe.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't what was going to help Ruth, which I don't think Ruth even knows that at this point. But basically, Ruth demands to
flip the mattress.
She's like, we need to flip this mattress. I've never flipped this. It's been like 21 years. And Amelia's like, why?
I flip mine every 14 weeks.
Every
14 weeks.
I've never flipped my mattress.
Okay, I have. I actually was curious. Yes, we do it like I would say once a year.
Where did you learn to do that?
I think
would have
Rob
never
did it.
Hear of it outside of this one episode of this show.
I'm pretty sure Rob did it, and here's why. Because
There's stains involved.
Yes, I'm trying to figure out how to fix this. I'm trying to figure out how to shut my mouth right now. You just kept it going. Yes, there were stains involved.
Okay,
and we just take
that's
turns.
all we can say.
Okay.
That's fine. Unless you want to elaborate. But
No, because I mean, part some of them are period stains too.
that is valid, and we don't need to be embarrassed by
I'm
that.
not embarrassed about that.
I have definitely, when you were saying that, I was thinking back to college and basically the first time where I was in charge of like all of my own belongings and
You look at your mattress,
bleeding on my mattress, and I probably did flip it in college because of that. But
or you get a mattress topper. It was funny though that Amelia was like, "Oh, a naked mattress. There's nothing good about this."
she was like, "It looks so sad."
Yes, and it did. It looked so
Yes.
sad. There's nothing happy about a
Yes. And Ruth
naked
just
mattress.
like, shut the fuck up. Oh, that was a funny moment. Then Nate drives past the protest about saving a park in the city.
Oh, yes. And he's reading all the signs and all that stuff. And the one that stuck out to me was the fucking moron from the last episode.
Call back to that. So
Yeah.
He doesn't, apparently is self-conscious about being called a moron.
Yeah, somebody called him that at some point.
Probably David. It sounds like. Or at least in his
I'll bet
dream
you he
sequence.
did. Yes.
Yeah. Probably. Yeah, that's the most likely actually person. And then Nathaniel's ghost appears with Nate as he's watching the protest people hold these signs that in Nate's imagination they're saying these different things. They're not actually saying you fucking moron, but that's how Nate is reading it. But Nathaniel says to him, "What are you doing? You have a gift. You can help people. Fine, go back to peddling soy milk and nailing waitresses. What do I care? I'm dead." So Nate's starting to realize how big of a mistake it is to sell a kroner. And then we cut to David in the kitchen, and he's looking at Nate, and he's like, "So you don't want to sell?" And Nate's like, "Just hear me out."
Yeah, he says something about this is what I'm supposed to do, which is why I spent so much time running away from it. My whole life I've been a tourist. I just really think we can do this, you and me together. And it is interesting because Nate seems to care about the people and David cares about the money of the business. So it is essentially a really good fit for business. And it can also be the toughest type of teamwork working together.
Yeah.
When I was writing that too, I was thinking I've spent so much of my time running away from it. This is what I'm supposed to do, which is why I spend so much of my time running away from it. I felt like, now this could be me projecting on him. You know me. When I get an idea, I'm very passionate about it. I could argue that this is what I'm supposed to do. And like, I can just feel it. I could feel like he almost was trying to convince himself that this is what I'm supposed to do because I've spent my time running away.
He
It just seemed
desperately
like it was
wanted a
grabbing at.
purpose.
Yes. Yes.
I can see that too. And that would make sense as the like volatile decision making between the brothers continues to develop. It's just like
I wouldn't have picked that up on the first time around watching it, but as I was watching it now, I thought, wow, that really just sounded like a convincing statement to which is also great. I do lie to myself daily. You know, the more you tell yourself something, the more
bit,
the more you say, "Oh, I'm in a good mood. I can do this. I can do this. I can do," even though I know the fuck I can't, but I just keep thinking.
But you do.
But I do.
Yes.
That's kind of the energies that I was getting.
For sure. I agree. And I think too, I was listening back to our second episode where you were talking about how David was so bad at the emotional aspect of the interaction with Chandler Swanson's wife in episode 2.
With the baby.
I think that I think that he wasn't only you just made me think of it because we're talking about this, but I don't think David as business or profit oriented as he necessarily came off based on those scenes. I think he's just super overwhelmed by, I mean, they're getting
he's now doing all the things.
Yeah, so that's what he's definitely not as good at the connecting with people as Nate is, which we just found out in the scene where Nathaniel says to him, you have a gift. So clearly that's always been a gift for Nate.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think David is, basically I think the essence of what I'm trying to say is I don't want to put him into the same category as being just a greedy bastard like the Kroner people. He still has the care. It's just he also
knows how to run the business.
Yeah.
He knows how to get the sales.
Sense of responsibility.
Yep. And he knows how the numbers work. You can't run a profitable business if you don't know how to make profits.
Right. And
clearly Nate didn't know
exactly
from that second episode.
Right. And like as skeezy as it was to up this poor widow on a expensive coffin,
he didn't know that she was
that she was broke, and he's got to do what he's got to do. I mean,
yeah,
you got to do what you got to do sometimes.
She could have said no.
Exactly. Yeah. And we do know that he is very hell-bent on following the rules too, which I think is a good quality.
He is very responsible.
Rigid? I don't know. Yeah. I think he's very responsible. His Clifton strengths, he'd have
which is probably why he doesn't want to tell people he's gay, because that's not right.
Yeah, in his mind, as he's been raised, like that's not a responsible lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Which we don't agree with that.
We do not think that, no. But that's what the environment he's in. So that was a heartfelt conversation between the brothers, and they agree to keep the business. And David agrees, but there's a shot at the end where he looks at Ruth, like he just gives this look like so he was basically like, Nate is unhinged right now, but okay, let's see.
I think they know that he's wishy-washy too. So they're like, where is this going to go?
In that conversation,
Mm-hmm.
Ruth even chimed in and said, you're right, Nate, you don't always follow through with what you say you're going to do. And Nate's like, I know. But so then we cut to the dinner scene with Nate and Brenda, and Nate tells her that not only did he choose to stay in LA to keep the business, but also because of Brenda. And Brenda was just like,
shut the fuck up.
Yeah. She's like, oh, come on. I had such a good buzz going. Don't ruin it.
Yep, I love her.
That. She's so funny. And Nate, sometimes your honesty really gets tiresome. And then Brenda just kind of blows him off and surprises him with tickets to see a band that I think it was probably the band that
they were talking about.
Yeah, at the beginning of the episode.
But it was 3 weeks after he was supposed to be gone.
Yeah.
Or something.
So that shows Brenda's.
She knows him. She knows he's fucking flaky.
It shows her foresight to essentially predicting Nate's moves, which I think probably contributes to their overall toxicity and gets under his skin because he comments on
right through it
and says, well, these tickets aren't for 3 weeks from now. How did you know I was going to stay? And she says, I didn't. But it also maybe, honestly, when you think of it, it's not that big of a deal. She could have just literally sold the tickets or gone with somebody else.
Yeah.
But I like that she also probably did it to fuck with him.
Yes. She kind of knows how to rock his head up.
Yes.
And, like, shake him up a little bit.
Yes. And it's so funny. So then we're back in the funeral home, and Rico asks Nate to help with the body parts of Mr. Romano. And because he gets a phone call from Vanessa, and this is an ongoing theme where he's being pulled between his family life and his work life at the Fisher funeral home. Yeah. And I don't think he's lying at this point, though. But
oh, wait, he wasn't. I think it really was because they were speaking Spanish, too.
Yeah. Another semi-spoiler / foreshadowing. But Rico was like, okay, I need you to help me with these body parts. And again, we have the body bag of just a bunch of loose body parts from the man who got chopped up in the dough mixer. Nate is struggling while Rico's on the phone to get the body parts put up out of the bag onto the stretcher thing. And Claire walks in to ask a question or something, and Nate basically just starts barfing.
No, he drops everything on the ground.
Yeah.
And he goes, Claire, look at what you made me do. Because she barged in.
I think, okay, yeah.
That irritated me because he can't take ownership of.
Yeah. He blames things on other people, for sure.
That's a common theme in my house right now with the young girls. So I was fixated on that. I was like, no, brother, you need to take responsibility. You cannot blame other people for the actions that you
Regardless
make.
of exactly what he said, he was salty to her, which was unwarranted.
I think he said, look at what you made me do.
You're probably right.
I think I should have put it in there.
And we don't find out right away at this point, but later on we find out that this is the point at which Claire swipes the foot that will come into play later. But Nate's barfing because there's body parts and he can't handle it. And
then he goes to trim the hedges.
Yeah. Nate.
Which is also when Kroner walks up.
Yes. So David comes down and sees Nate puking and he's like, I have a job that's more suited for your expertise or whatever. So he goes out and he's trimming the hedges. And then Kroner approaches him, or Mr. Gilardi, who represents Kroner, and says to him,
I'm planning to put you out of business in 6 months with his haircut, like he's...
I swear that's like a glued on wig or something. It's so weird.
It is so bad. It is so bad. And then talking about the cremation business that they're putting up across the street in this like abandoned house.
Yeah. There's an abandoned house across the street. And then Kroner just comes up and is being a douche and says, we're going to put you out of business. But we also learn right after this, when Nate goes in to tell David about this interaction, that Kroner has been manipulating all of Fisher and Sons vendors
yes,
like one of them is suing them and one of them is
undercutting their rates,
or like doubling, tripling, quadrupling their prices for things. So basically Kroner is just strategizing against Fisher and Sons because they wouldn't agree to sell to them,
and they have the money to do so.
Yep, which is so sad. And then I don't remember where everyone was. They must have just been, they were downstairs in the workspace, like in the morgue or whatever you call the funeral home downstairs. It's not the morgue because I don't know. I don't know the correct terminology,
mortuary,
I guess. Before, it's not like the funeral home part, but it's the embalming area part. Maybe it is the morgue. I don't know. But Rico approaches Nate and David and says, actually, I think they were upstairs at this point, and Rico came upstairs. But he said to them, I need you guys for a second. You don't happen to have Mr. Romano's foot on you, do you? Then
they're trying to retrace the steps.
They go downstairs to where the body is, and they're trying. And Rico and David are looking at Nate like, it says in the paperwork, all the body parts were accounted for. Like, you were the one who transported the body. You need to think, where is it? And then Nate's going back over his steps. And Ruth walks in and is like, well, if you lost something, just look under the bed.
Which I still don't get.
It was such a weird, Ruth is just such a manic nut job sometimes, but I love her. And Nate's
I thought it was in the dryer when she went in there.
So did I. I was like, wait a minute.
And so did David, I think, because he ran over there.
Yeah, they all did. They had all looked at each other because she opens the dryer, which is in the same space as their workspace downstairs. And it ended up just being a tissue. And she was pissed that somebody put a tissue in there with the clothes. But Nate said to her, she was like, just look under the bed if you lost something. It's always under the bed. And he's like, I don't think that applies in this case. So she has no idea what they're talking about. But then it really quickly, again, cuts to Claire walking through the halls of her high school.
This was my jaw dropper. My jaw went down.
When you remembered what she did?
Yes.
Because I didn't remember.
No, I was like, where the fuck
point?
is the foot? I seriously couldn't remember where the foot was.
Oh my God.
And so she walks in with the bag and I'm like,
yes.
Oh, hell no.
It's literally like she's like on a mission with her bag under her arm and people are calling her like they're going like and like calling her toe slut, little piggy, and she's just walking down. I think she was wearing like a bandana over her head with this bag. And we
should bring that back into style.
Okay. I feel like it is actually. I saw it, or not like super recently, within the last couple of years, ladies were wearing bandanas. But we still don't for sure 100% find out yet at this point, but she has the foot in her bag and she's going to drop it off in Gabe's locker.
Which by this point, we know that this is going to be an $8 million lawsuit.
Right. Could potentially be if anyone finds out.
Yep.
So lucky we have Rico to cover our ass.
That's some chump change.
Then
Ruth and Amelia go.
But they don't go anywhere yet. But we have another really quick little blip of Ruth calling Amelia to say she's giving in to her friend's offer of help, and she stuffed a pillow from their bedroom into the trash can in her bedroom. She's clearly just losing it. And I don't know, not losing it, but just I related 100% when that little scene of her taking the pillow and shoving it into the trash can is just like crawling out of her own skin, essentially. So she calls Amelia and says, your best friend needs help, because that's what she said to her when she arrived at her house at the beginning. So she's kind of just giving in to letting her friend be there to support her. But we find out a little bit later that Ruth's idea of help
was a little different.
Was a little bit different than Amelia's.
Ruth was hanging out with us for too long.
Yes.
Oh, and then they find they have to meet with the family of Mr. Romano, and he has, 3 daughters, and they're bringing like the clothes and
his
shit.
His wife and daughters. There's a group of women who are mourning him.
And they're bringing the clothes for him to wear. And this motherfucker brings out a pair of Birkenstocks.
Yes, it was Birkenstocks.
And I'm like, that is so ridiculous.
It was silly. And even his sister.
Put those away.
Whatever. They're like, you idiot.
Here.
He's going to wear loafers. And David's like, yes, I wear loafers. They're wonderful.
Very, very comfortable.
Because they're missing the foot and they don't have a foot to put in the sandal. That's so creative. Can we just take a second to recognize how creative of writing and storytelling that is? Like, who would have ever
He loved his
that?
Birkenstocks.
Which I get. I honestly can understand.
I don't want to be buried with anything on my feet. I don't want to be buried.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
But if I had to.
But okay, when my dog Baxter died when I was 8, we buried him with his favorite bone. So I can understand that sense. It was
with
like
a Birkenstocks.
Yeah, it's like it's like, you need these. You can't leave this here. This is your favorite thing. So I get that, but it was just funny because they're missing his foot, so they can't put sandals on him. And then really quickly we witness Gabe finding the
foot in his leg. He's a good actor.
He is. I really do enjoy his character a lot.
It definitely looked like fear and grossness.
Yeah,
and
he opens his locker and you see it from you're inside the locker.
Didn't he have to open up the bag too?
He opens the bag and then he just
falls down
himself back through against the other end of the hallway and is just freaking out because there is a severed human foot in his locker,
set into rigor mortis,
which
probably stanky
as fuck. And honestly though, what an amazing
fuck you.
Yeah.
Who knew for a fact who sent that?
Oh yeah. And that was it's so perfect because it's just capitalizing on the way that he was building Claire up to begin with. He's like, ooh, you're so unique, you're so different, you're so edgy, you're so cool.
Yeah, don't fucking piss off the edgy different.
Yeah, let me just show you how edgy I am.
Different.
Yeah, I'm a little different.
I'm also morbid, so fuck off.
It was amazing.
And for all he knows, Claire severed that foot herself. How would he know that it was already?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So even more.
So funny.
More fucked up.
This was a very funny episode. So this was when Ruth and Amelia go to the horse races. That was Ruth, what she asked Amelia to do apparently. And then they're in line to get tickets.
And they see the couple making out.
Yeah.
And Ruth was like, so just enjoy it while it lasts, which it won't. You think you have forever, but you don't. Soon you get on each other's nerves. Then you don't tell them each other as much as you used to, because what's the point? Then you start lying to each other, and then when you think it can't get any worse, he up and dies. And then you're left alone. You're always ending up alone.
And they're looking at her like that meme of the girl in the backseat in the car seat,
yeah. And Amelia didn't stop her. She was like, okay. Yeah. I know she wanted to. She stepped in and was like, Ruth. And then she kept going, and that was a good friend moment.
Yeah, that was actually. That's a good point. She was kind of like, oh, chill. But then she was like, okay, you're letting some things out now. We need to let this out. And we see Rico calling David to tell him that the school had called the home and let him know that Claire had put a foot in someone's locker. And David he gets off the phone and says to Keith, because he was laying on the bed with Keith looking at the new ceiling fan they just installed. He was like, the school just called and Claire put a foot in someone's locker. And Keith was just like, Shut the fuck up.
Like it's fake.
It was so fun because it sounded just like what we would say. Honestly, like, shut the fuck up. It was so funny.
And Keith doesn't even really know the family that well yet. He
No.
knows like what David says, but he's not like
Right.
been around them much.
But you can tell he has
he's
endearment.
obviously good at, yeah.
Like, even though he doesn't know them, he wants to know them. And I think he loves them, like, by proxy.
Yeah.
Because he
I
loves
agree.
David. So then there's a scene where Nate and Brenda go to the abandoned house across the street from the Fisher family funeral home to explore. It was probably Brenda's idea, honestly.
It was, I think.
I'm pretty sure it was. And we see that Nate has memories there from his childhood. And he says to Brenda, whatever the little girl's name was, like Janie something, tried to kiss me in this room, but I wouldn't let her. But it shows them running around as kids, like ghostly apparitions, as him and Brenda are sitting there as adults making out on this grody couch, which
The house is disgusting.
What were your thoughts on them hooking up there in that house?
They need to get checked for staph infections.
I was so disgusted. And they slept on the couch because it shows later on we see Nate waking up when Brenda gets a phone call. But anyway.
Oh, yeah.
That was so icky.
And just honestly unsafe. What a time, though. Like, today you couldn't do that. That's not safe.
People probably do it, but it's still not safe.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean,
I won't judge.
I don't know. But so they're there. The reason that I put this in my notes is because of this one little line that Nate and Brenda exchange. Brenda always comes through with the most iconic
The one-liners.
quotes. One-liners, yes. But Nate's venting to Brenda, and he's like, fuck, if this isn't what I'm supposed to do with my life, then what am I supposed to do? And looks at him just kind of almost annoyed, or not annoyed, but just very like overly chill in comparison to Nate's level of stress here. And she says, living it, and you're doing that, so relax, which was so Brenda and so amazing.
And it's like, if that's all you can do with your life, that's good enough.
Yes, literally, you have to just be able to exist
And be.
There is so much pressure to be something important, something significant, make a difference, be productive. You are allowed to just exist and not do anything.
Because that is hard enough.
It's okay to want to have a purpose, but sometimes you need to let yourself just chill. And Brenda is
helping Nate figure that out.
The master of that and understands that. And she is not unproductive. I mean, I would argue that she lives a very fruitful life and she's very satisfied. But in order to obtain that balance, you need to let yourself enjoy.
Yeah.
And just chill. I don't know. So I think that was very wise advice from Brenda to Nate.
And I don't know that he actually took it.
No,
it's
he
so
literally
frustrating.
said, you don't really give a fuck about what I'm going through, do you? That was his response.
That is one thing I can't stand about him, is that he just doesn't
see.
It's like he's not able to have these conversations. He's not intellectually
equipped
to be there with Brenda. I feel like Brenda should be charging him an hourly rate to just be in her existence and living around her therapy.
I agree 100%.
So then Keith confronts Gabe at the school, I think, or something. And Keith called Claire a loser. He says she's just a loser.
Gabe called Claire a loser.
Or yes, Gabe called Claire a loser.
Keith confronted him in his uniform
as a cop
to help David out with the purpose of finding the foot so that they don't get sued.
Because there was a police report going to be done about it.
Via the school.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they figured if they could skip all that part.
Yeah. So Keith slipped in and wanted to help David out. But this was the moment that made me so sad because
he called her a loser.
Yeah. Keith was like, what happened?
He didn't know Keith knows her.
Yeah. He had no idea because we find out because David sticks his head out of the window of the car and Gabe goes, who is that?
His partner.
His
partner. He said, it's my partner.
That's my partner.
What did I write about that? He said, be glad you don't have to deal with him. He's into some crazy ass shit.
I was I was wondering if you capitalized as on morbid.
I did. Did you get it?
Yes,
Okay.
I got it. But I thought it was so funny because David is the most like
Not scary.
uptight looking person, and he's literally looking at Gabe like timid out the window, and Gabe's like, "Who is that?" And Keith, "Yeah, you better not look at him. He's into some crazy
Be
shit.
lucky you don't have to deal with
be
him.
glad you don't have to deal with him. Or he'll whatever." And then it cuts back to David, and he just like hides his head back in
Like,
the
what
car.
was his plan? Was he gonna say something? Do you think?
I think
And I thought
they played it out perfectly.
I think they put that in there. I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure, like in the future, we'll probably get some like Gabe will say, "Oh my God, I know you." When
he sees David.
Yep, and with
Probably.
Claire.
You might
And
be
he'll
right.
start to
I don't
connect the
remember
dots.
specifically. That's funny, though. We'll have to remember that because
Mhm.
I'm sure I didn't pick that up the first time watching through. Then we see Ruth and Amelia at the races. Again, they're having so much fun. Amelia says she wins like $40. Then Ruth says, "I won $4,000." And Amelia was like, "What?" And then Ruth says,
Just blurts out.
"Yeah. Also, I had an affair with a hairdresser last year."
That's on par for Ruth to do.
Yes. And Amelia was like, "You did?" And Ruth says, "Yes." And they just have this. I'm not saying this because I am a proponent for having affairs, but given their circumstances, this was a very sweet womanhood moment for them because Amelia was finally starting to level with Ruth and realize Ruth needed to get out of the house. She needed to have fun. She needed someone to open up to. And
boy, did she.
And she did, yeah. And she's learning more about Ruth that
It's probably humanizing Ruth
Yeah.
to Amelia.
100%, yeah.
100%.
100. Give it 100.
100.
But yes, I thought that was a very sweet womanhood friendship moment.
Okay. And then this is what wakes him up on the couch.
Yes, now we're back at
Nate.
the abandoned house
Yep.
on the couch.
And it was Billy. I knew it was.
Mm-hmm. And Nate and Brenda had fallen asleep on a crusty, musty, dusty abandoned couch in the abandoned house, and it was icky.
Yeah, there's clearly cockroaches in there.
Ew, it was just icky and dusty.
And it probably
gross.
was stanky.
Yeah, like you don't know what's there. You don't know what fluids are on that couch. There's probably, you just don't know. Why would you do that?
If they did it, think of how many other people have already done it.
Yeah, good point.
When there's one, there's many.
Seriously. But they wake up on the couch after clearly having hooked up there, and Brenda's cell phone is ringing, and she answers, and we can kind of make out a very stressed out male voice on the other end of the phone, which we come to find out is her brother Billy, who we met in episode 1.
Manic depressive.
She said he's manic depressive and or schizo or something like that, and we haven't seen a lot of him yet, but he's starting to enter, and he's having an episode. He calls Brenda. He's freaking out. Nate wakes up, asks who it is. Brenda doesn't want to tell him. Don't worry about it. Just forget it. Back off, she says, and she goes to leave and then turns around and says to him, "I'm glad you're staying in town." So she's not, I think she's essentially trying to communicate to him, it's not like another boyfriend, but I'm not trying to let you in.
This is none of your business.
Yeah, basically.
And you know what? She says it in such a way where, you know how like when you're mad and your partner's like, "What's wrong?" And you're like, "Nothing, I'm fine."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you're not really fine, and you want them to like know that you're not really fine, or do you know what I'm saying?
She
like,
wants him to know that she's got to deal with
I'm
something.
genuinely telling you, just back the fuck up.
Yeah.
I'm not I'm not playing a game right now.
Yeah.
And
Trust me.
I am, yes.
I think essentially what she's saying is you cannot handle this, because she knows
Probably.
he can't.
No,
he's not equipped to grasp, and we find that out too.
Yes.
We find that out he's not. But yeah, so she leaves.
That was interesting.
Nate's confused. We learn that Gabe threw the foot out of his car, and Keith says to David, "Okay, I'll go and take a look at where he said he dumped it." And David's like, "You don't have to do that." And Keith says, "How can I sleep, huh? Knowing there's a foot on the loose."
I like that because I'm watching another TV show that has a cop in it, or actually several cops, but he basically turned it around on his responsibility now, not that he's doing it for David so that David didn't feel bad. you know, because like it is a cop.
Yeah.
If a cop knows that it's their duties
Yeah.
as police officers to.
And he also kept it light and funny. It
Yep.
was like still kind of joking.
Yep.
Because he's not really being like he doesn't really.
He
care
wouldn't give a shit
that there's
anyways.
a foot on the loose.
No.
But it's still
But it
falls
gave
under his umbrella of responsibility as a ethical police officer.
Correct. And so that David can feel like,
I'm helping you. I'm lifting this off your back.
well, that, and I think because David didn't want him to do him like this favor.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Keith was saying, don't worry, it's not just a favor for you. It is my ethical duty as well. So this isn't, I'm not like going out of my way.
Right.
Because I think David's still kind of worried about them being
indebted
so,
to each other.
yes. Yeah, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It totally does. That's very interesting to think about. I've definitely met people who not even at all in romantic relationships, but just in general, people who have some type of feeling or way or whatever, and they don't want to be indebted to you.
Yes.
So if you try to do something for them, you do something nice for them at all.
Because then they'll feel like they have to do something for you.
And it's an interesting complex.
And to piggyback with that, I have met people that like to be the indebter.
Yeah.
You owe me. I'm doing this for you. And Keith was like making very clear that that's not what this was about. And I liked that.
It was sweet. I liked it too.
Oh, motherfuck. Ruth busts her ass back home. And this was an interesting scenario. I don't even remember how it happened, but she lost $25,000. She was up and then she was down and then she was feeling the fire. And
we skipped from her sharing with Amelia at the races that she won $4,000.
Yes.
And now we're at the kitchen table again with Ruth telling Nate
she
that
lost
she lost
$25,000.
$25,000. And Nate is trying to be the responsible adult.
And he gave a couple looks in there too that I was like, that's funny. Oh yeah, that's right. So it's him and Ruth, and Ruth she can't hold a secret in. She was just like, I need to get this off my chest.
And I think that speaks to her integrity.
Yes. I think because she held up the whole thing about Hiram for so long, she's like, I just don't want any more of this.
Yeah, she doesn't like that. I can identify
I
with
lost
that
$25,000. It's
fine.
And Nate was just very calm. You could tell he was upset, but he was just like, okay,
maybe you
how
can
did
find
you lose
some hobbies
25
that are a
little
bit less expensive.
Enter David, and David's like, what's going? He goes,
David
just walks in. He didn't even say anything.
There was a very funny moment. He walks in and looks at both of them, and it's just like,
and I think Nate went like this, and Ruth goes, what? I lost $25,000. Okay, you got it out of me. I was just rolling on the couch by myself.
Yes, it was very funny. That definitely was a very comical moment and very. I mean, the show does such a good job at making every single part that's funny not only funny, but also so on par or perfect for the character development. It's so, and I know that's probably what all shows do, but it's just so
we
good.
just notice it. I have to tell you. So that scenario that I just said, oh, all right, you got it out of me. There's a scenario in American Beauty that you were supposed to watch.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet, but I will. I genuinely will watch it as soon as I get.
So what's his name?
Kevin Spacey.
Kevin Spacey is in bed with his wife, and he's masturbating, thinking about a young woman. And the wife is like, what are you doing? And he goes, oh, all right, I was jacking off.
Okay.
You got me. And it was like the whole thing. Like, he wasn't even really being interrogated.
Yeah.
And neither was Ruth, but she was just like, you got it out of me.
Yeah. Oh my God, funny. That's probably what connected, because it's the same writer, so he probably was pulling from that.
What? Oh my God. Joking. That is fucked.
You knew that.
I know, but I didn't connect it that well. When you watch that episode now, or when you watch the movie, you're gonna die because it's literally. Why aren't we getting paid for this?
Dying.
We're like the sleuths of the undercovers.
We need to we need to show up at Alan Ball's house and be like, we know everything you've ever thought in your whole life and how all of them have connected together.
And we know that you used them twice.
Yes, and we would like to discuss it. Thank you. Please be on our podcast. Okay. Keith runs into Claire at the scene of the foot dumping. Yes. And he says to her, hey, what's going on? And she goes, not much, which was like stupid at first. But then when it cuts to the next scene, I'm like, that was hilarious. Not much. They're just out in the middle of a ditch, the same
randomly
ditch.
at the same time.
Yeah.
In the middle of the night.
Yes.
It was in the middle of the night, right?
Yes. Well, in the evening at least, because then again, being a choppy episode, it cuts back to the Romano funeral. It's the actual funeral this time where everyone's there like paying their respects to the body.
Oh,
and
yeah.
His dead body is up in the casket.
And fucking, of course, they want to take a peek at the whole body, because why the fuck not?
Because they knew that he was chopped into bits, so they say something along lines.
They want to make sure you put them all back together.
Yeah, I just really want to see with my own eyes that he's put back properly. I just think it will help me sleep better at night. And so they lift the coffin to show, and they're stressed because they're like, we don't know what Rico ended up doing with the foot. Is there going to be a foot?
But remember, Rico is a master maker.
Rico is a master of his craft 100%, because then we find out after they close the casket, things all look fine. They walk
Look
back.
like a foot to me.
Yes. And they say, Rico, how did you do that? Why does he have
Rico
a foot?
gave him the look of like, sup, boys?
He goes, oh yeah.
You
All
check
right,
that out?
You like that? Mrs. Fisher had a ham in the back of the fridge or something like that.
Reminds me of that episode of Friends where they're trying to build Joey a circumcised penis. Putting together
You want to know something? I've never watched Friends full through. Like, I've only seen random episodes. Maybe that can be our next podcast when we're done with this.
Yes.
That gets us another 7 years worth of content.
Great.
There we go. But no, I do. So I sometimes get references. I've definitely watched chunks of consecutive episodes. I know the storyline around like where Ross cheats on Rachel and all that.
They were on a break.
I've seen those episodes, and I've seen kind of like the most popular ones probably, but I've never sat and watched it consecutively through. I should.
You should.
Why the hell not? I don't know. I just never have.
They're 20-minute episodes.
Because I watched The Office on repeat for
it's better than
the past 15 years, and also Unsolved Mysteries. But
okay, so then we're back with the foot. Claire and Keith, they're still walking looking for the foot. It cuts back to this.
Yeah,
and they're just walking in silence, and Claire goes, I didn't know. I think he said something about, I think we're more alike than you think. Keith said that to Claire, right?
Probably something. There was a lot. I didn't write down.
There was a lot of dialogue back and forth.
If you put it down, I put it in there. But they had a lot of dialogue that we may have cut out.
Okay, and so then Claire was like, you ever suck a guy's toe? And you do not expect him to say this, but Keith says, yeah.
And Claire says,
me too.
Me too.
So they both just confided like deep secrets to each other. It was very sweet.
Best endearing bonding moment between these two while they're looking for the severed foot in the ditch.
Still unspoken because Claire just is supposed to know that Keith is the racquetball player.
Right. Then we're back at the funeral again. We learned that. So Nate and Rico, while they're talking about the ham foot, then they recognize they're looking at the wife of the husband who's being buried, and she's starting to get really close to the casket. And one of them says to the other, Rico and David say it to each other. You thinking what I'm thinking? Casket climber. And then Nate doesn't know what they're talking about, so he chimes in and he was like, you know, David, we should really tell Rico about what's going on with Gilardi. And Rico surprises both of them by admitting that Gilardi actually called Rico and tried to recruit him. And
which would have really sucked.
Yeah. And it was super sad. And he goes, I just met with them. I didn't agree to anything. They just asked to meet with me.
He did owe it to himself to meet with them, see if they're
100%.
You know.
But he thought they were bringing it up because they found out that they had reached out to him. Rico didn't know that they had also reached out
to
them to
sell.
sell the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I think that Rico just panicked and spilled the beans about himself meeting with him because
I think he was really proud of it too, though.
I'm sure, and as he should be. I think, yeah, he feels indebted for sure toward the Fishers because Nathaniel, we find out, it's probably the next episode or next couple episodes about Rico's background and how he got connected with Nathaniel Fisher in the first place, but it's very emotional and in-depth. But then we find out their theory is correct. The woman starts climbing on the casket. Basically what they mean by casket climber is she tries to climb the casket and just
go with him. She says, I want to be buried with you.
I want to go with him.
And it would have been bad if that casket fell over and the ham fell out.
Yeah. We don't want the ham foot rolling across the floor.
Back to Keith and Claire. It was interesting because she just blurted out, so I know you and my brother are like gay. Mm-hmm. And Keith said, okay. And Claire was like, oh, I like this. What do you see in him and what do you see in him anyway? Kind of like grossed out, like my big brother, you can't.
Mm-hmm. Not grossed about them being gay, but just like
that it's his big brother.
Yeah. She has her angstiness toward her family.
I don't have brothers. Oh, I do. I have 2 brothers. Oh my God.
But
I'm going to hell.
These are mixed.
Yes,
so
they're 2 half brothers, but growing up, they're older. They're 15 years older than me. Mm-hmm. So I didn't run into this scenario. I could say the same
thing about last episode when you were like, you're the youngest.
Who?
Yeah, back to your brothers.
Oh my God.
But for real, we get confused sometimes because...
Yeah, a lot of mixage.
There's what we're supposed to know and what we know.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. A lot of layers. Wow. Put a sock in my mouth. But I was thinking of,
okay.
Like when people would hook up with her brother, she would like get grossed out about it, you know?
Okay.
So like I think that's...
I never hooked up with her brother, so I don't know.
I didn't either. I don't think. Maybe I did.
Okay.
But some of our friends did for sure.
Yeah.
And
so, everyone else besides
Leona and Tanya and, you know. But I could see the disgust.
Miranda.
Yes, is it?
The one song, Freak a Leak. Dude, what are the names?
Oh my God, no, I don't know that one. I don't know Freak a Leak.
Sasha Miranda.
Okay. And so Keith very kindly and cutely explains what he loves about David. And it was just so sweet because it was so real and just not surface level. It was deep and kind of, oh yeah, here I wrote it. He said, David, he gets me. When someone sees you as you really are and wants to be with you, that's powerful. And I think back in that time too, I loved when they brought up the fact that other gay people would find Keith and be like, oh, you're a cop, huh?
Yeah. And Claire said something like,
they want you in sexy cop.
Yeah, sexy RoboCop or something like that. And he's like, yeah, just rent
old.
A video.
Yeah, rent a video. Just gets old. So it was really sweet. What did you think?
I agree 100%. I wrote a lot of the things that you wrote about the interaction between Claire and Keith. I also had similar ones. So when Claire, he tells Claire why he loves David, Claire's like, whatever. I wish I could know the David that you know. And Keith says to her, well, you could be a little nicer to him. He is under a lot of stress with that cremation place opening across the street. And Claire says, what cremation place? And then we see Claire getting home and walking into the entryway of the Fisher family funeral home where her family is all sitting there just talking
about the foot.
Talking about the foot and the fiasco and all the drama that they're dealing with.
They hadn't known where she was because she never came home from school.
Yeah, she was out. She never told them she was out looking for the foot. She didn't know anything, which is also very sweet that Keith is the only one she was with Keith. And I bet that was like so sweet.
I think that was another thing that she did. She said, I was with your friend Keith.
Did she say that?
Yeah.
Well, my favorite thing that she said when she comes home is, oh, by the way, that house across the street is on fire.
Which we know who did it.
And then we go outside and the Fisher family is standing outside watching the house across the street that the Kroner business bought to put them out of business essentially. It's going up in flames and they're all watching. And Claire says to them in a very ominous tone, I guess this should solve all your problems, huh?
You sounded just like her. I'm also confused about that because, okay, they bought the property. The house was fucking old and abandoned and falling apart. Didn't she just help them, like, tear down so they could rebuild?
I had the same thought. I was wondering. But I wonder if maybe that, like, maybe that would then be at, like, no longer a profit to them if they would have had to start from scratch is the only logistical thing I could come up with.
Okay.
But I don't know. I agree. And they probably do have enough money
Alan
to
Ball
still
has
do that.
on our show, we'll ask him.
Yeah, Alan Ball. Can you explain that little loophole? Because why couldn't Kroner just build a building there if they're so rich? But let's pretend we don't know that because Claire's oh my gosh.
I was very kind.
I did. It was very kind of her to burn down the house across the street. But I will say,
nobody was there.
There's a scene that Nate looks back over his shoulder. He's watching the house burn down across the street. Claire's standing back on the porch, like leaning against the pillar on their porch. And Nate looks back over his shoulder at her.
He knows.
He's looking at her like, what did you do? And she has this look on her face
that says it all.
It actually scared me. It did. It was like you could see she was on the verge of, if she continued down that destructive path, it could turn out very badly for her. I think it was almost in a sense like her dabbling in the very dark places of where her depths could go. And
it's nice to see that once in a while. But you don't want to stay in there.
It works out here. Yeah, you don't want to stay in there. And I think, too, also looking at it from the perspective of, we've only known Claire at this point for 3 episodes. And in one of those episodes, she just got introduced to meth for the first time. Mm-hmm. So we're seeing, and she's getting outed by her boyfriend for sucking his toe. Like, she is going through and her dad died on Christmas Eve. I mean,
yeah,
we're worried for her. We're worried for her. I'm very worried for her here. But I do support her decision to burn down.
I know. There's a lot of that going on. That theme seems to pop up, too. That's another theme that seems to pop up is, we're not sure if what you did was absolutely right, but we kind of support it. Mm-hmm. There's things that are happening in this world right now that are the same way that I'm like, I don't know that I would necessarily do that.
Luigi.
But I'm not going to. Yes.
I can't wait to show you my new shirt. Hopefully it'll come in time for me to wear it to our next episode.
Sunday? Well, or we can do it a different one.
Yeah.
A different one, too. Yeah.
You'll see what I mean. Okay.
Do I need to buy a Mario shirt?
I'll send you the link. Maybe we can be twins.
Okay.
Okay. Then basically the episode ends where a woman is walking her dog and she's like, Freckles. And he comes running out of a ditch with a foot in his mouth. So we found the foot.
Yeah.
Found the foot at the end of the day.
We don't know what she's going to do with it, though.
No, I don't think it matters. Probably nothing.
They're done with this episode.
It doesn't matter. He's buried. If they found the foot now, what are they going to do?
DNA test it and be like,
oh, no, yeah, okay. Like if the cops found the foot. But hopefully Keith was the one who got called.
I suppose it's a small town. I thought that, though. I was like,
it's LA.
Okay, so no. I'm sure Keith did not get the call. Otherwise, he's got it all set up to come straight through him.
We don't know what happened to the foot. I'm guessing you probably just left it there and it got eaten by a raccoon.
Which would never happen. You find a dismembered body part, you have to call the police.
That's another plot hole we can confront Alan Hall about.
All right.
We need to start a checklist. Put up a whiteboard back here. What happened to the foot?
I have a whiteboard. Okay. I have an extra one. I do have dry erase.
Okay. Let's
talk. Whiteboard coming up next week.
MVP. Who is your MVP?
Claire the Vigilante.
For breaking the house down?
Yes.
Same. I don't think we even need an explanation for that. She deserves
for what she's been through.
She's
a victim of abuse.
And the fact that she's still, I mean, okay. Disclaimer also, we have not 100% been explicitly told that Claire burnt this house down, but it's pretty obvious that they want us to think that. But I think it's very notable to look at the fact that even though she's been through all this trauma, she's still, her bottom line, like her vendetta is to help my family. Mm-hmm. And it's not about her, which is, think about if it were Nate as a teenager and they were swapped or something. I mean, Nate's personality at that point, it would have been like, no, like
He would have left.
I'm running away.
Yeah.
And Claire is like, oh, this is causing you a problem. Well,
Because she
let me
stopped
fix
Nate
it.
or Keith to talk about that right away as soon as he said that. It wasn't anything else that they were talking about. That was the thing that
so much inside. I think
she wants to help and do good.
Yeah, she 100% earns MVP for sure, and probably will for many episodes. But this, I agree with.
Okay,
that.
so fuck, marry, kill. Let's not give Kroner anything in this one.
Okay. New characters. We met Amelia today.
Yep, I wanted to put her in there.
Who else did we meet today?
I don't know that we really met any new characters.
Guy.
The one that helped with the dead bodies.
Yeah, and told Nate to tell his agency to get him a better gig. That was stupid, though. I don't know. He's not very significant.
Let's put Rico in there.
Okay. Yeah, we haven't done him yet, have we?
Okay, so Amelia, the morgue guy, and Rico. Fuck one, marry one, kill one.
Okay. Ooh. You go first.
I'd probably fuck Rico, marry the morgue guy because he had a sense of humor, and I'd kill Amelia.
Really?
Yeah.
Why would you kill Amelia?
I think Amelia would annoy the shit out of me.
She is very annoying. I would say, just because this was the initial thought that popped in my head, I would marry Amelia because I think that she would continue pushing her partner to,
Oh, I didn't think about that.
like, be free emotionally. And I like
air
that.
out the things.
Yeah. Yeah. She was very open in that sense, which I liked.
That would be a really good marital partner.
I would also fuck Rico. He
seems spicy.
Yeah. Well, and he's just funny.
Yeah.
And that's attractive. And more guy was kind of a downer, so.
What did I say that I'd do with him? I'd marry him. I think that's what I said. I thought he was kind of funny.
I mean, he kind of was, but I don't know. We just threw him in there. Literally just thought of him.
Okay.
Okay, well, fun. Look at how good we did on time today, Courtney.
Fuck yes.
I think all we had to do was just try a little bit.
Yeah, we didn't really do anything different. I didn't have to take any breastfeeding breaks.
No.
It was great. Sweet.
Okay.
Make sure that you like and subscribe to our channels.
Yes.
You can see us on all the things, I think.
Comment and tell us if you like something or
don't like something. Negative Nancy's
or
fuel us.
Your feelings about any of the things that we talked about, because that's
in all the plot holes with Alan Ball.
Yeah.
Somebody tag him.
Tag Alan, please. There's actually a million Allens that worked on this show because during that reunion episode, they kept talking about Alan. They were all different. But literally, tell us, because that's why we're doing this. We want to talk. We
like the collaboration of all of the things.
We want to talk about these topics with
people. And so if we missed anything, bring it up, because we can also do bonus footage of things that we've missed. Yeah, we'll do whatever.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Like and subscribe. And see you for
next week.
Episode 4. Love you. Bye.
Cut.